Nathan MacPherson, I'm going to tell you, he's a second generational constitutional and tax lawyer. He's outstanding. He flew from a vacation in Brazil with his family to come up because he cares this much about education, about Common Core. He's made huge sacrifices for you. He's not getting an honorarium or anything, okay? He's doing this because he cares. We needed a lawyer to be involved so that they could address the big picture, second generation. So he's learned from his father, and he is a constitutional lawyer as well, a very successful one at that. But I'm just deeply, deeply grateful. What he has to say is very, very, very important and will empower you and equip you with knowledge that you need to take this to the next level. So with that, I'd like to welcome Nathan MacPherson.
Thank you. Thank you. I want to go back to the question we asked at the beginning, why are we here? And there's been a little bit of a change in the makeup of the audience, so anybody want to come and tell us again why you came here tonight? Why are you spending your night listening to us?
To learn.
To learn? Okay. What do you want to learn?
Everything I can.
Everything you can about
Common Core.
the Common Core, where it came from, what it means for Alaska and the country. Okay.
The hidden agenda.
Hidden agenda. Very good. Okay. We'll be touching on that. I have a lot of info on that.
And what it means to the country.
What it means to the country.
Because it's already been implemented outside.
Exactly.
So it's really scary.
Okay.
We're just kind of standing up here. We thought we were all by ourselves, right?
Right.
But we've been sucked in.
Okay. Anybody else over here? Yes, you.
Because at my 5th grade daughter's parent-teacher conference, I was handed the results of 4 standardized tests.
Uh-huh.
Nothing about what she had done, during the quarter. I was handed results of standardized testing that I didn't even know she was taking.
Ooh.
And because my 1st grader on Friday told me he hates reading.
Wow.
It's a waste of time. That's why I'm here.
Very important. Okay, thank you. Thank you. Anybody else before we go on?
Well, I want to know who to push back on. I still think, our local officials, are the ones who can make a bigger, faster difference. I mean, nothing against the state. I mean, I'm a state representative, but,
Yes.
I still think if we're going to do the push and we're going to get everybody riled up, I want to know how we target and how we get it done quicker,
Okay.
and then go with the next level.
How do we bring this back local where it should be? I'll be touching on that. Great, thank you. I wanted to share with you a little bit why I'm here. As Representative mentioned, I returned from Brazil, even missed my first international flight, had to rebook. So I've been flying for like 3 days now. Why? This is my father. And the day I was born, he made major. He's a West Point graduate. The very next week, in June of '79, he won a criminal tax defense case. He's the defense attorney in Anchorage. The next week, he won another case in Anchorage. The next week, another week in Anchorage. And over the next 3 years, the first 3 years of my life, roughly, he tried 9 cases up here in Alaska, including 2 right here in Fairbanks he won. And so I came up here. I was born in Arizona. I came up here as a small child on a couple of those trips he took. And so he sort of started this. And as well, my mom has a degree in elementary education. Both of her parents were educators. And her grandparents, my great-grandparents, were educators. And when I was a small child, my brothers were in the public schools in Arizona. And the school system brought in people from Chicago to change the Arizona school system, started to implement secular humanism. And so my mom was one of the group of moms who stood up and fought against that back when I was a small child over 30 years ago. So I'm sort of continuing that. The next reason, my wife and my 3 boys who are still in Brazil. I have 3 boys, 2, 4, and 6. And I expect they'll have children. I don't want my grandchildren to be born into communism or Marxism or socialism. I was born into a republic, and my grandchildren and great-grandchildren better be born into a republic.
Amen, brother.
Thank you. And then this probably should have been my first reason, but, our Father is God to thee, author of liberty, for thee I'm speaking. That's, anybody tell who that is right there? Or not that guy, but over here? George Washington. But what book is being held right there? The Bible. This is a picture of laying the foundation of our capital. The cornerstone. The Bible was the cornerstone of the nation. Not under Common Core, of course. But the ultimate reason is from the preamble to the United States Constitution, to secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity. That's the purpose of the U.S. Constitution, and I think that's why all of us are here tonight, right? Talking about our children, futures. We want liberty to continue. Well, the Common Core violates the Alaska and the U.S. Constitution, subverts the constitutions, violates federal law, and it undermines parental rights and local control. Talked about local control. It's undermined by this. So the basic question, why does the Constitution matter? That we sort of need to go back to that because apparently a lot of people aren't following it right now. So why does it matter? See, ma'am, you're about to take a drink of water, right? But what are you holding? Why do you have a glass if you just want the water? Yeah, the water wouldn't be very useful without the glass, right? The glass provides the structure, the context for the water, the content that you need. And that's the same with the Constitution. It provides the framework, the glue that holds us together. Without the Constitution, we're not a country anymore. We're not a state anymore. And this is a quote from a U.S. Supreme Court case talking about two spheres. Anybody guess what these two spheres are?
Would be church and state.
That's a good guess. Church and state.
The state and federal government?
Exactly, ma'am. State and federal government. And what's the purpose of the state versus the federal government? What does the Supreme Court say there?
Separation, there's liberty. Amen.
Protecting liberty. Okay, so we all know about, the representative has been talking about the three branches of government. Can we name those? Exactly. And a basic question, are they co-equal branches? No. Excellent. Who said no? You. They're not co-equal. What's the...
Legislative is the most powerful, executive is the next powerful, and the
Exactly.
courts are the least powerful.
Exactly.
We
wouldn't know that now, would we? But that was the intent of the Founding Fathers. Perfect. Yes. Exactly. The legislative, so we have at least two legislators here, right?
Yeah.
You're supposed to be the most powerful within the state. Not Commissioner Haney, who wasn't elected, by the way. Anybody vote for, Hanley. Anybody vote for him here? No, but you voted for, depending where you live, you voted for these two, right? Okay, and we'll get into that a little bit more. And then the executive is supposed to do what? Faithfully execute the laws. Yes, sir. And then the judicial is there sort of as a backstop. That's the design anyway. There again, the laundry list, and it's probably not exhaustive, of violations here, but you notice I have these three federal statutes on education, two from the 60s, 65, and then one from 1979. The implementing, 1979 was when the Department of Education was created under President Carter. The implementing statute to that says who has the primary duty for education. Any guesses? Parents, yes. U.S. Congress found in statute, they wrote it down, we find that parents have the primary role. What comes next? The local school districts in the states have the duty to support the parents, and under the Alaska Constitution, the legislature must do two things: establish and maintain public schools. And the federal government, U.S. Congress, the federal government found in statute that their only role is to just help the states make sure that they're doing what they need to do to support the parents. This is federal law on the books. And all three of these also say, all three of the three federal statutes say that the federal government may not direct curriculum, standards, testing, etc., may not. Prohibited by statute. Besides U.S. Constitution Amendment 10, well, the Common Core violates the 10th Amendment and those statutes. Everybody knows who that guy is, right? because we went to school before these new textbooks came out. What does he say? Does the Constitution, the U.S. Constitution, allow the federal government to, in this case, what they were proposing was actually federal funding of public schools. Can you read that there? What did President Jefferson say when he was speaking to the House and Senate? We'd have to amend the Constitution. That hasn't been done. And besides, like I just mentioned, U.S. Congress agrees. 3 federal statutes say that they may not control curriculum and that the primary responsibility lies with the parents, and that the states and local school boards, school districts, etc., must support the parents. Anybody recognize that guy? I hope you recognize him. You recognize him, okay. A friend of mine and my father's, Sheriff Richard Mack, originally Sheriff of Graham County, Arizona. Well, we have him to thank for this Supreme Court case. Anybody remember why he sued? And he's Mack, and Prince was another sheriff from Montana. Why did they sue, and whom did they sue? Do you remember that?
Here it is.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
You have it right there.
Yeah, I have a copy. This is, it's Mac versus Prince, and they sued over rating.
Over the exactly. And that was, remember the 5-day waiting period? Probably nobody here in Alaska liked that one. But what did the federal government pass this law about this waiting period and background checks and all this? What did they do? So that then the FBI came out and did a background check on you? No, they told the state law enforcement, executive branch, they told the state executive branch, you have to do this. We passed this law, so now you go do it. And Sheriff Richard Mack said, I don't think so. Took it up to the Supreme Court, he won. And now, in this case, 1997, the Supreme Court said, we've already held, back starting in 1936, that the federal government may not tell the legislature of the state what to do. And now we're saying, yeah, they also can't tell the executive branch what to do. It's crystal clear Supreme Court law that the federal government, if it doesn't have constitutional authority over the issue, can't go around that by having the state legislature or the executive branch do what the federal government says.
But that's why they tie money to it.
Very good.
They don't make us do it.
Okay.
I mean, we don't want the money, and that's what, every time we have an education committee meeting,
Let me...
and we ask them, and they tell us that if we don't want the money, we don't have to do it. But
See if I have this over here.
Enough that we will.
That's called the bribe.
And that is also illegal.
No, you're right. I mean,
That's the bribe, but Supreme Court
That is bribe.
says, let me see here, it's illegal under Supreme Court law. Several cases say that it's illegal. I might have that up here. And this, again, the United States versus Butler was the first Supreme Court case directed on the legislature, and then Sheriff Mack's case applied it also to the executive branch. And this is a little one. Government, Supreme Court revising the law, dictatorship, because this guy was the guy, he gave this quote that was good, and he held, in this case, he wrote the opinion in the case that said the federal government can't tell the state legislature what to do. But then FDR, remember the president back then, kind of got mad at him and said, I'm going to throw all of the Supreme Court justices out if they don't start doing what I say. And then there was the stitch in time that saved 9. So they, after this case, they sort of reversed and started doing whatever the president said. Sound familiar?
Mm-hmm. Well, there's nothing in the federal government that says they have to give you funding for education either.
There are Supreme Court cases that say it's illegal for them to bribe you with it.
No, but
it's illegal.
Right, it's illegal to bribe. I'll take that one. But
I'm not talking about a regular bribe. I'm talking about what they're doing. Attaching strings to this money is illegal.
But they don't even have to give money, period. Correct? I mean, we have to, we in the state, by Constitution, have to set up a system, and we have to adequately fund it and have a accountability matrix.
Right.
In Alaska State Constitution.
And they don't have to give you any money, but under South Dakota versus Dole from 1987, federal funding of the highways, where the federal government, the Supreme Court has held, has authority to spend money or do things regarding highways, it's okay for them to condition the money. In this case, it's clear, and there's also a lawsuit going on right now about this. Governor Jindal sued. They don't have the authority over education, it's clear by statute, and therefore they may not condition money on doing what they say. They may do it with highways, they may not do it with education.
No, but my question is the federal government could just say, I can't do that, and I'm not disagreeing with what you're saying. But what they could do, and this is why states might choose not to fight or sue, is because there's nothing in the Constitution of the United States that says that the government has to fund education, unlike our Alaska government.
It's most likely unconstitutional for them to fund it based on what President Jefferson said. So, all right, can you read this one? So you just said they don't have to give us the money, so maybe we should just go along with it. That would be
I'm just asking
that would be
what
the
they do.
legislature violating the Constitution.
No, I don't think we should go along with it. I have no problem giving the federal money their money and telling them what to do with it.
But right here,
I just wanted to make it
when the
clear that
federal
they don't
government
have
does
to.
this, the state may not ratify it. And why is this? Anybody have a guess? Why can't the state just say, I don't care, I'll just go along with the federal government? Why may the state not do that? Any guesses?
That's undermining the Constitution to begin with.
It's unconstitutional.
Yeah.
And even more specifically to that, that's correct, but go a little deeper.
Well, it'd be, and taking bribes, the state usurping the people's power.
Exactly, ma'am. Usurping the people's power. It is a right of the people. The 10th Amendment, the Supreme Court has held over and over again that the 10th Amendment protects the right of the people, and therefore the state may not agree to a violation of the 10th Amendment because the state may not violate the people's right. Why may the state not violate the people's right? Let's go back a little further in time. Before the Constitution, we had, what was the first organic document of the United States?
Declaration of Independence.
And what does that say? Where do we get the rights?
It's from God himself.
From God himself. Our Creator has given us these rights. Therefore, the state and the federal government, nobody but God may take them away from us.
So the fact that the state's accepting money to begin with is superseding their rights, and we should just elect them all out of there.
Yes.
I mean, that's exactly what should happen. Yeah.
The sovereignty is in the individual.
It's in the people. We the
state
people.
derives its sovereignty from the individual, so
Exactly.
it's kind of turned exactly upside down.
Yeah.
Exactly correct. ma'am. This is the fundamental issue here,
So
is
so
that we the people have the
Can I
power.
also make a comment to
Yes.
people who are this idea that the state is allowing, this local district is giving permission, that whole idea is completely off base. We
And-
give all permission. So no, don't, I mean, I wouldn't even characterize it that way. That, yeah, this school district is letting people. No, we are in charge.
Correct.
period.
And we've basically dropped the ball, and so they picked it up.
Yeah.
And even this whole thing, this again, I need to drill this in. The state agreeing to it, Hanley or Haney or whoever, Hanley, right? Signing this
Dead man walking.
waiver and saying we're going to go along with whatever to get the money is illegal. He has no authority to do that. Nobody here. The legislature has no authority to do that because the 10th Amendment protects the people. And this is crystal clear law in the land. Moreover, what does this say? What about this, whatever they're doing here with the Common Core that we know now that they're not allowed to do, but they've done it, is invalid and cannot be enforced. It's void ab initio because they didn't have any authority to do it. If you don't have authority, which by the way, let's look at that word a second. What's the root of authority? Take off the suffix. Author. Who's the author of life? And therefore he has authority, right? He created us, gave us our rights, therefore he has the right to take away those rights. Not the state government, not the federal government. And again, what you said, we the people gave the state government certain delegated authority, and then we gave certain enumerated to the federal government, very, 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 very limited to the federal government. And right now it's been turned upside down where the federal government is controlling the states and then they're both telling us what to do. It's flipped it. And there's been another flip right here.
Basically, so when the compromise was made, when the state legislature started accepting money when they shouldn't be accepting money in their education, and then that became the norm. And then the government understood that it's a norm. And now they're using it as like, well, basically a crack addict on the street. Oh, you want some crack? You're going to do what I say.
Yeah.
Even though it's completely illegal, it's,
Exactly.
you know, and if someone would step up and say something about it, it'd be all put in jail. But since it's a norm, it's just a little crack and cocaine, you're okay.
Correct.
Okay.
That's
what's happening.
it's just been incremental
Yeah.
And
So
then
it was addicted to the
now
market.
it's been an exponential curve, so that kind of started off slowly, and the past few years it's just snowballed. And there's also an issue. Representative Reinbold talked about the $4.5 million we're sending to Kansas. So the state of Alaska entered into a contract with the state of Kansas to do this testing, and we're paying them. That violates the Compacts Clause. There's a lawsuit right now in Missouri where the parents sued, and they got a temporary restraining order where the judge said, it looks like this is unconstitutional. They just in their complaint alleged enough that surely looks like they're going to win, so I'm going to put a restraining order on this. The state may no longer pay this money, because for a state to agree with the state, they have to get U.S. congressional permission. They haven't done that. And once again, remember, we have the three branches. Congress writes the law, the most powerful branch. U.S. Congress said the federal government doesn't have authority over education. The executive branch faithfully execute the laws. Instead, they're usurping it. The General Counsel of the U.S. Department of Education and the Deputy General Counsel of the U.S. Department of Education under George W. Bush wrote a paper about 5 years ago saying the Common Core violates federal law and the Constitution. Basically exactly the material I have here. They wrote this. Remember, again, the number one attorney, the number two attorney, the U.S. Department of Education said the executive branch is usurping, going against congressional intent, doing something that violates federal law and the Constitution. So it's not just, some attorney here in this room making this stuff up. These are the number one and number two attorney from the U.S. Department of Education. Governor Jindal of Louisiana has sued in federal court there, alleging exactly these same things. And on this Compacts Clause, there's already a temporary restraining order in place in Missouri prohibiting that state from sending money to another state under this unconstitutional contract to test the tests.
So is that because of the public university that their contracts with? Is that why?
Because it's a state.
No, but I mean, they contracted with the University of Kansas.
Which is private.
I mean, is it because it's a public
It's
university?
a state. It's public. Correct. I'm watching you. Which amendment would this be talking about? I'm watching you. Privacy. And Alaska mirrors basically the Fourth Amendment in the Alaskan Constitution, but also has an extra clause that says the legislature has the affirmative duty to protect our privacy. So listen up, any legislators in this room, state government. You have an affirmative duty to protect the privacy of all of the citizens of Alaska under the Alaskan Constitution. Students, parents, you name it, because it's, well, just see what's going on here. Arne Duncan, current U.S. Secretary of Education, says, what does he want to do about Johnny? He wants to track your little Johnny. Too bad the little baby's not here anymore, because that little baby's already being tracked. But what does he want to know? Okay, so how much he learned, where he went to school, whatever. Okay, I kind of get that the school system would know what classes you took, right? Now, the fact that immediately gets beamed to Washington, D.C. is a little bit worrisome, but that this local school knows it, okay. But what's this bearings on its earnings? Does the school here in Fairbanks know how much you make when you graduate? Or what are they talking about here? Let's check out. Since I'm a tax defense attorney, beatirs.com, and you can get all these slides from the website, beatirs.com. The video is up there. My video from Anchorage is already up. So I kind of keep an eye on what the Commissioner of Internal Revenue is doing, because it affects my clients as far as tax issues. But what does he say here? They're partnering with whom? Federal, state, and local level. So maybe that's how the Fairbanks School or the Delta Junction School or the Wasilla School, the information is tracked on how much you earn, but also abroad. What's this called? This is called the External Revenue Service? No, the Internal Revenue Service, which is a whole other topic we could talk about, but the Founding Fathers said that they shouldn't have internal revenue. It's never worked in the history of the world. Alaska at least learned that one. And actually, my dad successfully defended the only guy in the history of the state of Alaska to be charged with failure to file an Alaska tax return after the income tax was repealed. The guy was charged.
Is this why the government wants to be in control of student loans? Because if they're in control of student loans, they know where you've gone to school, they know what classes you've taken, and then you've got to do your taxes, so they already have all this information and they're paying taxes on. They have it all.
Yes,
already.
and I have another slide that'll touch even more on that. Yes.
But with this database, they have you even if you didn't take out a student loan. And the state, they can
Correct.
track you when you leave the
Tracking
state.
Johnny, no matter what. And so he's talking about working with the domestically and abroad, foreign governments. This is what I was talking about that just came out. Look at the date here, January 12th. I just got this email of this little IRS news bulletin. IRS launches international data exchange. Yeah, came out today. Right? And it talks about, but it'll enhance our ability to detect hidden accounts and help ensure fairness. So I'm glad the tax system will be fair. Remember this word fair, by the way, because we're going to be getting to more of that here. Fair, but you can read they're working with foreign governments now to track us. UN, somebody, was it you, ma'am, who mentioned earlier, what does the United Nations have to do with this?
Probably,
Yeah, so, well, here's,
where did it all come from?
and, yeah, nobody should be invisible, by the way. So Alaskans don't really care about privacy, though, right? You didn't move up here to, well, no one should be invisible. This is the world we want. We want a world that counts, where all of you are measured, and we can track you. That's what we want, right? Everybody in this room?
Better than gunpowder and lead.
That's what you want. Do you want to register that gun? Do you want to register your kids?
No.
Think about that one. So here, international partners and countries have recently agreed treaty, and remember this word treaty. That will come up in the future. You'll be hearing, because that is one way that they've been implementing federal legislation over things that aren't enumerated in the Constitution. Births, deaths, marriages. Any home birthers here? Okay. Did you register? Did you have the civil authorities right there to stamp your child?
No.
Social Security number? Most of my clients don't even have Social Security numbers for their kids.
Sweet.
They don't want to. So they're not complying with this international agreement here about tracking everybody. Moving on to the First Amendment. Anybody recognize this? Yeah, Russian Orthodox. Not quite. Kenai Peninsula. Ninilchik. So we mentioned before the history books talking about Islam, and I don't know if I can find the quotes here, but it's pretty. Track Johnny, invisible. Human rights. Yeah, here's some quotes. Muhammad becomes God's messenger, and because humans rejected Allah's or God's earlier messengers, Allah sent his final revelation to Muhammad. We kind of thought that the Bible was the inspired word of God, but apparently the Quran is the inspired word of God, according to the textbooks here. But Sharia law requires Muslim leaders to extend religious tolerance to Christians and Jews, so that's nice to know. Yeah.
That's why we pay the fee.
Exactly. This is what the kids are being taught. Okay. So, and Muhammad was great in getting the Arabs and the Jews to work together and coexist peacefully. It's taught when actually, according to David Barton, the real history was that they exterminated the Jews and drove some of them out. The rest who didn't, run away quickly enough to kill them. That's how they coexisted. So one version of history is that he got them all to work together and let's join arms. The other is that there was genocide.
They're all really peaceful when they're dead.
Resting in peace, right? That's where it comes from. So we have just blatant lies about Islam, promoting it in violation, of course, the First Amendment Establishment Clause, and Alaska Constitution says that education must be non-sectarian. Now on the thing, a lot of people want to do the Abeka homeschool curriculum, and they say we can't get the state money for that because that's sectarian. Is Christianity a sect or religion? It is to the government now. But if you look up the definition of sect, it doesn't really seem to fit. Maybe Lutheranism, Methodist, Baptist, whether you're Calvinist or etc. That's sort of a sect, right? But Christianity as a whole is not a sect. So I would say, unless Becca is promoting a narrow, Calvinism or Lutheran doctrine or something, it seems that it would be lawful for Alaska to finance it.
Humanism has been defined as a religion.
Yes, it has. The Supreme Court has held that.
Our public education system teaches is a humanist.
Correct. In a violation of the First Amendment and the Alaska Constitution. Exactly. Yeah, the U.S. Supreme Court and the circuit courts have held, for purposes of the First Amendment Establishment Clause, religious freedom, that humanism is a religion. And yet, one of the architects of the Common Core, do I have that? No. In the slides, that if you give me my email address or if you go to beatirs.com, media, public speaking, the slides will be up there. I have detailed slides on that one of the architects is one of the signers of the 10 Commitments of Humanism. And it certainly promotes the false religion of humanism in violation, I would say, of the First Amendment and Alaska Constitution religious freedom provisions. So it's promoting Islam and humanism and denigrating Christianity, actually. The references to Jesus are, there was some Jew who was born and some people said whatever about him, but Allah was God's messenger. I'm not making this up. The books, and I have the quotes and so forth on these slides.
Is that site we could go to?
Beat IRS, BEAT-IRS, beating the Internal Revenue Service.com. Once again, the role of the Alaska Legislature, obligation under the Alaska Constitution to establish and maintain schools. Once again, Thomas Jefferson, who was a big proponent of education, said, the states need to be providing these schools, but if you think they ought to be managing the schools, from Juneau, they're going to tell Fairbanks what to do, what textbooks to use and so forth. We might as well just have them run our farms and our mills and everything else, right? Because it's just, how many state legislators are there in Alaska?
460. Well, 20 senators, 40 House.
Okay, so total
60,
Congress 60. And how many, we have 735,000 people, how many schools? Can you write the curriculum for all the schools? It's just,
We could if you wanted us to. If you really wanted us to.
I think it would be kind of hard, right? And Thomas Jefferson would say you should. You need to establish and maintain and provide a structure, and then, what does he say? Who should be correct funded? Who should be doing it here? Where is it? Parents within each ward. And why would that be? I had a picture of my family up here. Do you guys care more about my kids, or do I care more about my kids? And what about your kids? I care more about them, or? Right. So it's sort of natural that you're going to care about what's right there, what's yours, and you're going to do a better job taking care of it. So we've discussed the violations, blatant violations of federal statute, federal U.S. Constitution, state Constitution. Subversive, in other words, undermining it. Treasonous, basically. You could say treasonous, right? Here is what the Common Core says, the Second Amendment, and then, again, this is the books that are aligned to the Common Core. And what the U.S. Supreme Court, we can pretty much read its basic English, the Second Amendment, but the Supreme Court has recently, in 2008, where they ruled unconstitutional D.C.'s gun ban, and then in 2010 they affirmed this decision and applied it to the states. Through the 14th Amendment, they applied the U.S. Constitution, Bill of Rights, to the states, and they said the right to bear arms is fundamental for defense, an individual right, not connected to militia, crystal clear. And this says there's another, so besides the militia thing in here, what else is wrong with that Common Core aligned definition of the Second Amendment?
Grant citizens the right?
Grants, yeah. No way. Once again, the Declaration of Independence, the unanimous declaration of the 13 colonies, said it's self-evident truth that our Creator gave us these rights, not a piece of paper, not a government, not anything. So Second Amendment enumerates that this God-given right must be protected and it's individual, and the U.S. Supreme Court even agrees with that in 2008 and 2010. That's just one example. I have more in my more detailed slides. You have a question?
Oh yeah, it's just so bizarre. I was listening to a lawyer at DV, and he said that he was like, it was a college class. And he's like, why don't you just put a copy of the Constitution in the class? And the teacher was like, whoa, let's not go crazy here. And I'm like,
Yes.
this is not a hard piece of document to get a hold of, and it seems like it'd be very easy to copy and paste it from a digital thing to a textbook, than to add all your mumble jumble stuff on there.
So you have to wonder why is this
Yeah.
in the textbook instead?
Well,
You have to
I
ask.
haven't wondered that much.
No, yeah, Marxism.
Yeah.
Digital learning.
And the digital, anybody use the BibleGateway.com? You ever notice, at least when I grew up, the Christmas account out of Luke was the NIV. So I was reading that to my kids a couple of years ago, and then the next day I went to read it from Bible Gateway app. And I was like, wait a minute, it's like talking about Mary, the hotel or something, like, rather than there was no room for them in the inn and all this, it's about a hotel. Found out they switched overnight to the NIV 2011, which has rewritten the Bible. So, exactly, so this digital learning, tomorrow this could say, nobody's allowed to have guns. Just think about these, so again, I'm using MacBook Air, iPhones, all this kind of stuff. Technology is great, but you have to be careful because they can change it and you don't even know. So one day you're reading one thing, the next day you're reading something else. And here we go with the United Nations. So rather than just printing off the Constitution, the Declaration of Independence, etc., and putting it in a textbook, we have, what kind of rights are they talking about here? Are you going to get up and go to work tomorrow? Or are you just going to sit home and get your free house and everything that you need for a comfortable life? Because we have a right to a comfortable life, it says. This is 5th grade, and I have the exact lesson plan in these slides. This is what the kids are being taught. United Nations Declaration of Human Rights, Universal Declaration of Human Rights, state-granted rights, or United Nations granted rights to things they talk about. Social justice is a big thing. So remember, the tax system needs to be fair. We have to have social justice. That's what's being taught. I think that's subversive of the Constitution. What about you? Is that compatible with the Bill of Rights and the rest of the Constitution? Can these things coexist? Doesn't seem to me. Again, Creator gave us these rights, and why do we have government? Another fundamental question. Well, what is the Declaration? Which, again, an organic document of the United States. It's like the cup around the water. Just like the Constitution, the Declaration is part of what makes our country. And it says, to secure these rights, that's why we have government. And just like the Alaska Constitution says, the Legislature of Alaska has an affirmative duty to protect our privacy. That's why we elect these people, to secure these rights.
Well, they're not securing those rights.
Right now they're not. No, it doesn't seem. And authority of the good people. Again, all of us here, we the people, are the ones who have the authority. So I think somebody in the beginning, at least when we arrived, was asking, well, what could we do instead of the Common Core? So here's some basic examples. Children should be educated and instructed in the principles of freedom. It used to be a requirement of education that you know the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution. Now instead you're learning the Universal Declaration of Human Rights in school. That's not a principle of freedom. Virtue, liberty. Noah Webster, anybody studied him or read his books? What's he most famous for?
Dictionary.
Yeah, the American English Language Dictionary. Why did he write a new dictionary? Why didn't they just print off the Oxford Dictionary?
You didn't like spelling words with you.
That's one thing you notice, right? What do you think a word means to somebody who lives under a monarchy versus somebody who lives in a republic? What about somebody who lives under communism? What does freedom mean to them?
They don't understand.
A little different, right? Your worldview is affected by that. And so you define your words. What about the rigorous standards? Different meaning, right? Under the Common Core than what we would consider rigor. So, and he's also the father of American education. So prior to the Revolutionary War, the Founding Fathers were educated in a certain way. And that's why they wrote, these quotes that we have up here. After that, Noah Webster wrote the first American curriculum that was basically a continuation of the old. And then we mentioned John Dewey. There was another, the guy from the 1840s, who, even before John Dewey sort of started this reformation of school, changed all that. So we can just go back to what he did. How much does it cost to print off a book from the 1800s? There's no copyright.
Cost of paper.
It's the cost of paper, right? Yeah, because there's no copyright. What about the Common Core? Copyright, you can't even, under the copyright of the Common Core, you're not allowed to change, you're not allowed to skip chapters, you're not allowed to talk against it.
Can I burn it?
Probably not.
I won't turn you in.
This is a powerful statement. Dr. Benjamin Rush, he was also one of the fathers of traditional American education. He was also the father of American psychiatry. Education's favorable to liberty. So yeah, and once again, we're completely in favor of education. In fact, the legislature has an affirmative duty to provide education. But it needs to be education in freedom, correct? Yeah, what kind? It needs to be complying, not subverting the Constitution. And this, might give you some insight into why the United Nations would be interested in changing our education. I'll leave that up to you to decide. So that was the Founding Fathers' view on education. Here's the more modern view. All about money. So when you look at your child, you see love, future, posterity, they see dollar signs. Again, here we have the social justice. How do we define social justice? How do they define social justice, by the way?
Everyone's equally poor.
Everybody.
Redistribution of wealth.
Yeah, redistribution. Everybody's equally poor. Right. So if you have too much, you don't have enough. And it's some third party who gets to decide. And
Right, but they're not stepping up and
They're the
doing
only
it.
ones
It's like,
who are
hey,
equally
no,
poor.
because go back to the, without proper education and liberty,
Well,
not universal.
I think the United Nations is involved because we're redistributing wealth with this on a global level rather than just, you think of it as wealth redistribution within the United States. It's the entire globe.
You're correct. Yeah, and other countries, like where I just came from, are ahead of us, so to speak, on this. They've had this type of education. And you can tell in the manner of thinking among the everyday people. So, do you think we can put data on the witness stand? Not this data, because it doesn't tell the whole truth. But that doesn't matter, because we're not going to use the data for much, only for closing thousands of schools across America. Do you think the teachers are happy about that? Or if they knew about this, would they be happy? So what can you do? Once again, why we're here, to secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity. And what can we do about it? Well, we have to do something. And once again, who has the power? The people. We the people have the power. We might not think that sometimes, but what's harder to do? Follow the Constitution that we have, hold our elected officials accountable, call the governor, etc., or to break away from the United Kingdom, the most powerful country in the world, and start a new country, what our founding fathers did 235 years ago, which is, and we talked a little bit about opting out. I said I had some stuff to say about that. You notice here what the Ninth Circuit says. Once your child steps over the threshold of the schoolroom door, you as a parent no longer have the fundamental right to direct your child's education. If they say we're going to teach Johnny the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, and you say I want Johnny to learn the Constitution, once your child goes there, you no longer have a right. If you say I don't want my child to learn about Islam being a good thing, or I don't want them to learn that a marriage is something other than what the Bible says a marriage is, you don't have a choice if your child's in a public school. The Ninth Circuit, the First, Second, and Tenth Circuits have all held this. This is the law of the land. Alaska's in the Ninth Circuit. Notice the name of that case. That was a school principal contracted with this company, spent public money. You can imagine what kind of educational materials hot, sexy, and safer products produces. I'm glad that they're at least safer materials for the children. We're keeping the kids safe. And the reason this went up to the First Circuit there was the parents said, I don't want my child learning this hot, sexy, safer stuff. You're not going to teach that. And the school said, yes, we are. The parents said, that's my child. No, you're not. What did the First Circuit say? Oh, yeah, that parent, it's your child, so you get to decide. No. First Circuit said, you sent your kid to the public school. Too bad. They're our kids now. Many of you have probably seen the video of we have to stop parents from thinking this notion that the kids are theirs. Kids belong to the community. You agree with that? Well, it's their human right, isn't it?
That's right.
So.
Earlier, didn't you say that the Supreme Court has defined that parents have the primary duty?
That's federal statute.
That's federal statute.
And that's what Jefferson said, yeah. So it's federal law. That's right.
So this hasn't gone up to, this is not the first.
This has not gone to the Supreme Court yet.
Okay. So this is unconstitutional. And it just has to come.
And that's the kind of the weird thing. It's the law of the land because the Ninth Circuit has said so, but the federal statute disagrees with it. And
But then because
we
you're
don't.
choosing to send your kids there. I mean, you don't have to send your kids. There's no law that says you have to send them.
Right now, there's no compulsory education that says you can't homeschool. In most other countries, that is the law, but here not yet. Correct.
We're required to put it together, what that looks like, but that's when you get back to local control, that if the parents want to be in control of this stuff going on, they have to be involved, and if they're not involved in anything,
then it gets swept away.
it gets turned, right.
It gets swept away.
So
And so there is a constitutional amendment proposed by the head of the Homeschool Legal Defense Association and parentalrights.org that would put basic, sort of like in the Bill of Rights, so to speak, it would be an amendment to the Constitution that would say parents have a fundamental right to direct their children's education and make medical decisions, et cetera, because you've probably also seen these kids being stolen from their parents and the state's taking charge over them because it's just gone nuts recently. So if you did object to the Islam, you might get a restraining order against you that you're not allowed to go on school property anymore, like happened to this father. But I wanted to point out, it's part of the curriculum and it's part of the standards you're supposed to learn. This was the book, in one of these books about Islam's a great thing. And remember the argument that the Common Core is just standards, it's not curriculum, right? That's the argument of the other side. Yeah. Well, what does this school administrator say? It's part of the curriculum, it's part of the standards you're supposed to learn, but they're the same thing. And you're supposed to learn that Islam's a good thing. Was the message I got here out of this one. So back to what the founding fathers had to do, break away from the most powerful country in the world and start a new one, where all we're saying is, this is the law of the land. The U.S. Supreme Court has affirmed that the Constitution is the law of the land. And so we're saying, let's follow the Constitution that the Supreme Court has said is the law of the land. That's got to be pretty easy, especially considering we're not going to fight our battles alone. There's a just God who's going to raise up friends. I flew from Brazil to be here. I'm not from Fairbanks, right? And we're working, as Representative Reinbold said, with legislators and other people across the country. Friends are popping out of the woodwork. So don't be discouraged that we're weak, because we are not weak. And we, the people, have the power. God gave us these rights. We delegated certain authority to the states and very limited authority to the federal government. The Supreme Court agrees with us. Federal statutes agree with us. The Constitution agrees with us. And the Supreme Court agrees that the Constitution is the supreme law of the land. So we're not saying anything radical here, are we? Back to securing the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity. That I thought this speech was also quite poignant. Hector Henry's one of my heroes. What would he say if he were here today? What would Noah Webster say we should do? Common Core or something else? And if something else, then what?
Hector Henry pulled a pistol out.
Yeah, he wouldn't still be talking.
Yeah.
I challenge you to do it, sir.
So may we, the people, prove ourselves worthy the name of Americans.
Yeah.
Amen.
And like I said, the slides and videos will be available on my website there afterwards. Wait to get there. Okay, you got one or two questions, or just the closing?
At the end. Okay, what we need to do is our plane leaves at 9, so we got to get going, unfortunately. But I really, you guys, what about a huge hand? I wanted him to be able to stay, but you guys, he gave the website there. Okay, so make sure you get that. I need to do closing comments right now. Because why did we come up here? I should be headed to Juneau, okay? I gave up my last Sunday to be in North Pole and Monday with my family to be here. Barbara Haney is spending morning, noon, night, year after year. I've chosen this because it's a war for our children's minds. You guys, there's millions, just not billions of dollars behind the other side, okay? It's an international, national, state movement, okay? It's huge. It's very, very powerful. However, as Nathan MacPherson said, we really do. If we choose to embrace the Constitution, which Tammy and I have sworn to uphold as lawyers, as Governor Walker, you saw the swearing in, we swore to uphold not only the state constitution, but the federal constitution. That is in our oath, okay? So what you learn, we are bound by oath to uphold the Constitution, okay? So I think it's very, very important. One, you guys need to study the Constitution. You've elected us to go do your job, okay, in regards to at the state level, okay? Find out. Don't just make a phone call because it's kind of worthless, okay? Get it in writing. Ask hard questions from your state legislator, from your school board, if they support this or not, okay? It's very, very important. And if they don't support it, tell them what you want and ask what they're going to do to change it, okay? Very, very important. That helps me as a legislator, okay? Equip yourself with knowledge. A lot of people are asking us to come around the state. We're getting exhausted, okay? We are going around the state. We're doing 4 symposiums in 2 days, okay? Or 3 days, actually. We're tired. We want you guys. We came here. We're going to fight this. We're in this for the long haul. We're going to be here to encourage you, to empower you, to connect you to one another, connect you to websites, to embrace one another. That's what we're here for. We were here. You all are now the experts. You know more than 99% of the population. Do your own symposiums. We'll send you slides. We'll send you, we printed off all the organizations that are fighting Common Core, and we have them. We're going to hand you handouts right now. So you can ask us, we have about 5 to 10 minutes to hand you different, and you can get contact information and things like that. But equip yourself with knowledge. Knowledge is power. Critical thinking is absolutely important that you guys stand up and empower and equip yourself. But we study this day in and day out. You need to do the same. You are now the experts. Go to your prayer groups, go to your schools, go to your coffee groups, go to your homeschool parents, get them educated. It is now, we have handed the baton to you, okay? You have knowledge, you have power. And we want to be your encouragement and continue to help you along the path, okay? We started a Freedom Caucus. There's 4 of us involved. That's 10% of the legislature so far. We are addressing education reform and addressing the Common Core issue and budgetary issues and other. We have reached out to about 16 other legislators. We're encouraging them to get involved, okay? If you want to move on. It's very, very important. Stay in touch with Barbara Haney. You guys have the expert in the state on this. You're lucky. You have no idea how lucky you are. She educates me. Stay involved with her. Go to her website, 147 Degrees West. She can .blogspot.com. Anyway, you can meet with her. You have a local expert here. You need to act. I've asked people to act. If you don't act, we fail. Okay? It needs to be a grassroots effort. You need to now go forth and make sure that you inspire, you encourage, you educate, you hold elected officials accountable, and you embrace the Constitution. It is a war for our students' minds, for our kids' minds. It's a war for our country. It's a war for protection of our Constitution. It's the most valuable document in all of history. I would say it's been over 200 years to hold the most powerful country together. It's critical. You guys, we're fighting to hold our Constitution together and keep. And I'm going to close with something that this has meant. It's been a lot to me. Get this book. It's called The Cult of Common Core by Brad McQueen. There's one error in here. It says we're not doing Common Core. That's because everybody was believing this lie that we weren't doing Common Core in the state of Alaska. But other than that, this book is absolutely outstanding. But this book said, this book is dedicated to you, okay? This book is invited to all you Mama Grizzlies, Daddy Grizzlies, Grandpa Grizzlies, any of you or future Grizzlies, okay? Who first sensed the danger posed by the cult of Common Core to our children. You refused to retreat. You refused to be quiet. And you continuously, fearlessly to fight to protect our children, to protect our country. You are our inspiration. With that, thank you guys. Go fight the fight, okay?